Hey there, Bible nerds. Welcome to Chapters and Chuckles by Kaye, where we dive into the Bible chapter by chapter. All right. So, last time we escaped the Pharaoh, crossed the sea on dry land, and burst into song. Now the Israelites are trekking through the wilderness, and things are about to get interesting. So, in today's episode, we are covering Exodus chapters 16 through 20. So, we have miracle bread from heaven, we have water from a rock, a surprise family reunion, and an epic battle, and the ultimate mountain rendezvous with God Himself. So, grab your drink. I have coconut water as always. Get cozy and let's dive in. So, chapter 16. Um, Manna Mania in the desert. So it has been a about a month since the Red Sea miracle. The Israelites are now trudging through a desolate wilderness, and ironically named the Wilderness of Sin, actually, which has nothing to do with the wrongdoings. It's just the name of the place. So the Israelites are hungry. No more picnics by the Nile or Egyptian buffet, just sand and shrubs. So the hangry level is rising. Soon the people start grumbling to Moses and Aaron. As always, they always do that. It's so annoying, but yeah, that's what they do. That's what these people do. Saying, "Why did you drag us out here? We wish the Lord had just let us die in Egypt, where at least we had pots of meat and all the bread we wanted. Now we're starving." Like, are you serious? So Moses probably, does an internal face palm, but brings the complaint to God, who thankfully is more than patient, far more patient. So God says, "I'm going to rain bread from heaven for you. Each day the people should gather just enough for that day. On the sixth day they gather double so they can rest on the seventh." So wait, bread from the sky? Falling from the sky? So the Israelites are about to experience divine DoorDash from the sky. So that evening, a huge flock of quails flies into the camp. Dinner, delivery. And the next morning, as the dew lifts, the ground is covered with fine, flaky stuff like frost. Um, the people blink in surprise and ask, "Man, manha?" So Hebrew for "what is it?" So Moses smiles and says, "That is the bread the Lord is giving you to eat." So, spoiler, their question, "what is it?" becomes its name, um, manna. Manna literally means "what is it?" in Hebrew. Um, so I actually have an artistic I have printed an artistic depiction of the Israelites gathering manna in the wilderness, painted by James Tissot in 1896. Just grab it. It's this one. If you are, wait, the camera's right there. So if you are on YouTube, you'll be able to see this. So the mysterious manna appears as fine white flakes on the ground, which the people collect in their baskets with equal parts, amazement and relief. So this is the painting that I had printed. All right. So Moses gives them God's instructions. Each person gather as much as you need, about an omer per head, roughly a big jar full. So don't save any overnight. And on the sixth day, gather double, because the seventh day is a holy Sabbath of rest. No manna will fall then. Or manna. I want to say, is it manna or manna? Manna. I'll call it manna. I never looked up how to actually properly say that. Manna. So the people scatter about, scooping up this strange new food. It's white like coriander seed and tastes like wafers made with honey. That actually sounds very yum. So think of a sweet cracker or honey wafer cookie. Think it would taste close to that maybe. But it's probably even better, but because it came straight from God. So, not too shabby for dessert cuisine. Some skeptics stash leftovers overnight despite God's command. Bad idea. So by morning, it stinks and it's full of worms. So lesson learned. Trust God's daily bread. On the sixth day, they gather 2 days worth as told. Yet, a few hard-headed folks go out on the seventh day probably thinking, free food, why not? Only to find nothing. So God gently chides Moses, how long will you refuse to keep my commandments? I gave you the Sabbath for rest. S- So they finally get it. Rest means rest. That day, the community chills with no meal prep needed. So this Manna miracle continues every single day for 40 years. 40 years of their journey until they reach the promised land. Talk about consistency. Um, Heavenly catering at its finest. The Israelites survive on manna with occasional, you know, quail nuggets all the way to Canaan. Moses, at God's command, even saves a jar of manna as a memorial for future generations to be kept in the ark later on. It's like God saying, "Keep a souvenir for of my provision." So in this chapter, the Israelites go from singing to whining in no time. They sure do like to whine about literally every single thing. So it's easy to judge them, but don't we all have, I guess, hangry moments of doubt? God responds not with anger, but with provision and a lesson in trust. And I should do this more often. This is a lesson that I need to, practice actually very often. I need to give my daughter more grace. Toddlers, 4-year-olds, are very impatient in general, and they like to whine. And sometimes I just, I can't. I know a lot of people cannot stand whining. So, but I need to give her more grace. So Mana taught them and us to rely on God one day at a time. Jesus later drew on this, calling himself the bread of life, the ultimate provision from heaven. When we're spiritually hungry or worried about tomorrow, God invites us to trust Him for today's daily bread. Also, the Sabbath rest is introduced here. God wasn't just feeding their bellies, He was training their souls to rest and depend on Him. In our 24/7 hustle culture, it's a timely reminder taking a day to rest, recharge, and remember God's goodness isn't a burden. It's a gift. All right, fun fact corner. So, what is manna exactly? So, the Hebrew manha or manha means what is it, which became the food's name. Um, so imagine naming your lunch whatchamacallit. Some scholars think manna could have been a natural substance like a resin or a dried insect secretion from desert shrubs, but its timing and consistency were clearly miraculous, and the fact that it just disappears on Sundays and Sundays only. Hmm. So, manna is described as white like coriander seed and tasting like honey wafer. It's a divinely provided sweet snack. Another fun fact: the first Sabbath observance. So Exodus 16 marks the first time Israel actively keeps the Sabbath by ceasing from gathering food. This happened before the Ten Commandments were given, showing the idea of a weekly holy rest was already in God's plan. Um, God was literally teaching a former slave people how to stop and rest. a radical concept for folks used to, nonstop labor. And it's actually it's not one of the 10 commandments, but it's a command from God that we all need to rest. It's mandatory. You are commanded to rest. So, anyways, that's it for chapter 16. All right, chapter 17, waterworks and war stories. So, matching onward, the Israelites reach a place called Rephidim, and wouldn't you know it, there's no water. So here we go again. The people are thirsty. Their kids are crying. Their livestock are parched. They corner Moses, saying, "Give us water to drink now." Moses, increasingly exasperated, replies, "Why are you quarreling with me? Why are you testing the Lord?" But the crowd grows angrier. Like, "Why did you bring us out of Egypt just to kill us and our children and cattle with thirst?" So Moses can almost hear the rocks in their hands. He prays to God. "What am I to do with these people? They're about to stone me. I swear, these people are just... cannot please them. Like, they like to complain about every single thing. Like, it does not make sense." Anyway, God calmly answers, "Take some elders and your staff, the one you used to part the sea, and go to the rock at Horeb. I will be standing there before you on the rock. Strike the rock and water will gush out for the people." So Moses obeys. He whacks the rock, and then it cracks, and then out pours fresh water, enough for everyone. So crisis averted by Rocky Mountain spring water, courtesy of God. Moses names the place Massa and Meribah, which means test and quarrel, because the Israelites tested the Lord there with their grumbling. Those names are like a permanent sticky note, like, don't complain, trust God. So just as everyone is savoring the water, a new threat emerges. The Amalekites attack. The Amalekites were a nomadic tribe, distant relatives of Israel through Esau's line. Like, talk about bad blood. They swoop in, likely targeting the weak stragglers. Moses springs into action. "Joshua, choose some men and go fight Amalek. Tomorrow I'll stand on the hilltop with God's staff in my hand." So this is the Bible's first mention of Joshua, Moses' young assistant, gearing up for battle. The next day, as Joshua leads the soldiers in the valley, Moses climbs a hill overlooking the battlefield. With him are his brother Aaron and a guy named Hur, possibly a leader, maybe Miriam's husband, according to tradition. Moses raises the staff of God high in his hand. As long as Moses' hands are up, the Israelites start winning. When his arms sag from fatigue, the Amalekites gain ground. It's a bizarre but clear signal. Like, raised hand equals victory, lowered hands is trouble. So soon poor Moses is pooped. He's over 80 years old. Holding a staff overhead under the desert sun, not exactly light cardio. And that staff is probably kind of heavy too, especially if you're just holding it up for a long time. So Aaron and Hur quickly roll a stone over Moses, for Moses to sit on. And then they support his arms, one on each side, holding them up steady. So teamwork makes the dream work. With this assist, Moses keeps his hand raised until sunset. Wow, it's a long time. And Joshua, imagine, can you even just keep your one hand raised for all day without even holding anything? I don't think anything. I can't do it. I can't. And Joshua's army triumphs over Amalek. Victory! Let's do this. All right, so after the battle, God tells Moses, Write this down on a scroll as a reminder and make sure Joshua hears it. I will utterly blot out the memory of Amalek under heaven. So God essentially declares lifelong war on Amalek's wickedness, a note that echoes later in scripture. Moses then builds an altar and names it Yahweh Nisi, meaning the Lord is my banner. Again, Yahweh Nisi, the Lord is my banner. He declares, the Lord has sworn the Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. This name, Yahweh Nisi, the Lord my banner, signifies God as the flag under which Israel rallied. It's like planting a victory flag saying, God won this battle for us. What a chapter. So, first, God provides water from a rock, a powerful image of life from lifelessness. Later, the Apostle Paul would even say, this rock symbolized Christ's presence with them, which is in First Corinthians chapter 10, verse 4. So, but a face value, it shows God at face value, it shows God can bring provision from the most unexpected places. When we hit rock hard problems, God can still bring streams of refreshment. And then next, the battle with Amalek teaches the power of prayerful support and community. Moses raised hands symbolized appeal to God, like an open channel for divine help. But even Moses couldn't do it alone. He needed Aaron and Hur. How true is that in our lives? Like, we all grow weary. We need each other to hold us up in prayer and encouragement. This story is a vivid reminder that victory comes when we depend on God and support one another. Also, did you notice Moses obeyed God and didn't fight Amalek by himself? So Joshua fought with the sword. Moses fought with prayer. Like, both roles were crucial. In life's battles, some of us will be on the field and some on the hill praying, and all parts of the team matter. And then finally, naming the altar, the Lord is my banner, Yahweh Nisi, encourages us to rally under God's leadership. So when we face challenges, whose banner are we waving? Our own or our Lord's? So for lasting victory, we raise his banner high. All right, fun fact corner. So Massa and Meribah, Moses gave the water stop two names. Those two names, Massa and Meribah. Massa meaning testing, and Meribah meaning quarrel or rebellion. These names memorialize the Israelites' attitude. It's as if Moses said, "Welcome to Testing McGurble Town." Population us. The dual name stuck as a cautionary tale. Even Jesus, when tempted, quoted, "Do not pull the Lord to the test," recalling this event. And then Yahweh Nisi, God our banner. This is the only time in the Bible God is called the Lord is our banner. In ancient battles, a banner or standard was like a flag or tall pole that served as a rallying point for troops. By naming the altar Yahweh Nisi, Moses was saying God is our rallying point and identity. It's a way of crediting him for the win. The Israelites fought under God's flag. Um, so here's a fun trivia. Many churches and organizations still use Jehovah Nisi in their names to signify God's leadership in battle. All right, that is it for chapter 17. All right, chapter 18, Jethro's Leadership Masterclass. Now for a change of pace, family reunion time. Moses has been leading Israel through plagues, seas, and all that, but what about his own family? So enter Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, priest of Midian, and all-around wise old dude. I bet he's really old. If Moses is in his 80s, this dude is probably in early hundreds, like 100 something, probably. Word of Israel's exodus has spread, and Jethro hears about all that God did in Egypt. So Jethro comes out to meet Moses at Mount Sinai, called the Mountain of God, bringing along Moses' wife Zipporah and Moses' two young sons, Gershom and Eliezer. It appears Moses has sent his family back to Jethro at some point earlier for safety, probably, and now they're reunited. Moses is overjoyed. He bows and kisses his father in law in respect. They exchange warm greetings, saying, "How are you? Good to see you, old man." Something like that. And then they go into Moses' tent for a good long talk, probably recapping everything that has just happened. So over a meal, Moses becomes that relative with all the wild stories. He recounts everything: the plagues, the miracle, the Red Sea, the desert challenges, the whining of the people, all of it. Jethro's eyes widen as he listens. He is delighted at the news. Jethro exclaims, "Blessed be the Lord who has delivered you from the Egyptians. Now I know that the Lord is greater than all other gods because he delivered the people from under the Egyptians' arrogance." Remember, Jethro he's not an Israelite. He's a Midianite priest. Yet, here he's praising Yahweh wholeheartedly. It's a beautiful hint that God's fame is spreading beyond Israel. Um, Jethro then offers a sacrifice to God, and Moses, Aaron, and the elders of Israel join him in a communal meal before God. A little interfaith Thanksgiving celebration of God's goodness. The next day, Moses goes back to work, and Jethro observes with those keen father-in-law eyes. Moses sits down to serve as judge for the people, and literally everyone with a dispute or question lines up from morning till evening. Picture a DMV line or a busy free clinic but with only one overworked Moses handling everything. People are bringing all sorts of cases, like, "He stole my goat. She grazed her sheep on my land. My neighbor is playing lyre music too loud at night." Whatever, I don't know. All the simple things that, you know, they complain about that is not worth complaining about, really. But Moses is solo, judging each case. By lunchtime, Jethro's eyebrows are probably in his hairline. Like, when Moses finally takes a breather, Jethro pulls him aside. "What are you doing to these people? Why do you sit alone as judge while everyone stands around you all day?" Moses shrugs, like, "Because the people come to me to inquire of God. I explain God's law and decide disputes." In other words, someone's got to do it. Jethro shakes his head, channeling some tough love. "What you are doing is not good. You will surely wear yourself out and the people too. This job is too heavy for one person. You cannot handle it alone." So imagine Moses blinking. He's not used to being told not good after all he has done. Jethro continues, "Listen to me, and God be with you. You be the people's representative before God. You bring their issues to God, teach them God's decrees and instructions, show them the way to live, but select capable, God-fearing, trustworthy men from among the people and appoint them as judges over groups of thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. Let them handle the routine cases. They can bring the big hard cases to you. That way your load will be lighter and everyone will be satisfied." What a smart, wise old man, huh? In modern terms, Jethro basically says, delegate, delegate, delegate. He's advocating the how do you say the hierarchy court system and some serious work-life balance for Moses. Amazingly, Moses, who regularly takes or talks with God and leads a nation, doesn't let pride get in the way. Good. Gotta humble yourself all times. He listens to Jethro's advice and implements it. He picks qualified men and makes them judges, leaders over the people at various levels. Simple cases get handled at lower levels. Difficult cases still come to Moses. The result, justice is served more efficiently. People aren't standing in line all day, and Moses gets to breathe. Jethro's mission accomplished. He then heads back to his own land, likely with a proud smile, leaving Moses a wiser leader than before. So, this chapter gives us a lovely breather from crisis and shows that wisdom can come from outside sources too. Jethro, Midianite, becomes God's instrument to teach Moses about healthy leadership. Even the greatest leaders need humility to accept advice. Moses shows true humility here. He didn't say, "Do you know who I am?" I talked to God directly. No, he humbly heeded his father in law. This teaches that no one is meant to handle life alone, be it leadership, ministry, family, friendship, work. Trying to be a one person show, not good, says Jethro. We all need to share burdens, empower others, and trust the team. This is basically an ancient biblical endorsement of delegation and avoiding burnout. Also, notice Moses was focusing not just on quick fixes, but on teaching God's ways to the people. Jethro affirmed that teaching them the statutes and ways to live. Similarly, in our lives, good leaders or parents, mentors, etc., don't just solve every problem for others. They teach and empower others to make good decisions themselves. And how, heartwarming that a family member, Jethro, is the one to strengthen Moses. It's a reminder that sometimes God uses the voices of those close to us, even in laws, to guide us. All right, fun fact corner. Um, so who is Jethro? Jethro is also called Ruel in some passages, and possibly Hobab in others. The texts have some complexity, but likely the same person or family. So he was a priest of Midian, which means he wasn't an Israelite. Yet he acknowledged Yahweh's greatness. His name Jethro possibly means excellence or abundance. This chapter is one of the first. What's the word? Hang on, let me look up the word that I want to say. All right, so I found the word. It's ecumenical. So this chapter is one of the first ecumenical coffee hours. An outsider worshiping God and giving godly counsel. Ecumenical primarily refers to matters concerning the worldwide Christian church, or especially its unity. So, anyways, so it shows that God's truth can be recognized by people outside Israel, and that God cared about Moses' personal well being, sending family and wisdom at the right time. And that is it for chapter 18. Okay, chapter 19. Meet God at Mount Sinai. So it's now the third new moon, or the third month since leaving Egypt. The Israelites move from Rephidim and finally arrive at the foot of the very mountain where Moses first met God in the burning bush, Mount Sinai, also known as Mount Horeb. So this is a big deal. They're about to camp with God. The Israelites set up the camp in front of the mountain. Moses hikes up into the mountain to talk to God, and God gives him a message for the people. This is what you will tell the Israelites. You'll see how I carried you out of Egypt on wings and brought eagle's wings and brought you here to myself. Now if you obey my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession out of all nations, a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Like, wow. God is essentially proposing a covenant, kind of like, will you be my people and let me be your God? With promises attached. He's offering them a special relationship and identity unlike the other nation. Moses climbs down and gathers the elders to relay God's words. The people responds in unison. Everything the Lord has spoken, we will do. So they're eager now, which is good. So, spoiler, sticking to that will be the real test. So God then instructs Moses, great, now here's the plan. I'm coming down on Mount Sinai in a thick cloud so the people can hear me speak with you and always trust you. Go back and consecrate the people today and tomorrow. Have them wash their clothes and be ready by the third day, because on the third day the Lord will come down upon Mount Sinai in the sight of everyone. Set boundaries around the mountain and warn the people. Don't go up or even touch the edge of it. Anyone who touches the mountain must be put to death. No hands shall touch them, but stone or shoot them with arrows. Whether animal or human, they shall not live. So, yes, it sounds harsh, but it underscores the absolute holiness of this event. God's presence is not to be approached casually. Think of it like a cosmic radiation, not because God is evil, but because he's that powerful. Like, only when the ram's horn sounds a long blast may they approach the mountain. So Moses goes down and conveys all this. The people set about washing their garments, probably the best bath day they've had in a while. Moses also says, abstain from marital relations for these days. So basically, focus on your minds and hearts on meeting God. The camp buzzes with nervous preparation, scrubbing clothes, confining trees, goats from wandering into the mountain, telling kids, no, you can go play on that hill, not today, you will die. Finally, the third day dawns. Boom! Thunder roars and lightning splits the sky. A thick cloud descends on the mountain, and on an eerie, loud trumpet blast echoes from above, growing louder and louder. The people in camp tremble. This is a divine surround sound. Um, Moses leads the people out of the camp to the foot of the mountain to meet God, and they stand there, probably wide eyed and shaking. Mount Sinai is covered in smoke because the Lord has descended on it in fire. The whole mountain looks like a smoking furnace with billows of smoke rising to the sky. The ground itself is quaking. An earthquake rattles the area. The trumpet sound grows louder and louder, blasting, and Moses speaks to begin, perhaps welcoming or praying, and God answers in thunder. It's an awe-inspiring, terrifying scene, like the ultimate thunderstorm mixed with volcanic fire. Side note: Sinai is not a volcano, but it sure seems like one that day. Um, so God calls Moses up to the top of the mountain again. Moses must have been in pretty good shape. This is trip number 3 of Sinai so far, and it's not a small hill. It's a mountain. So up Moses goes into the fiery, cloudy summit. The Lord tells Moses, go back down and sternly warn the people. Don't break through the boundaries to try and glimpse the Lord, or they will perish. And have the priests who come near consecrate themselves, or I, the Lord, will break out against them. Moses, perhaps slightly flustered, replies, the people can't come up. You already warned us, and we set the boundary. God essentially says, go anyway and make sure. Then bring Aaron back up with you, but nobody else. So Moses stretches down again to double underline the warning. Better safe than sorry when God is literally on the mountain. He likely finds the people already keeping a very healthy distance, faces down, but he reiterates, no touching the mountain, folks. So the stage is set. The people are consecrated, trembling at the foot of Sinai, and God Almighty is about to deliver the terms of his covenant loud and clear. Wow. So, talk about a dramatic setup. This chapter shows God's holiness and majesty in full sensory display. The boundaries and warnings might seem intense, but they communicate that God isn't one of the guys, he's the utterly holy one. Yet amazingly, he wants, these imperfect people to be his treasured nation and to speak to them. It's like a king lowering himself to speak with peasants, but multiply that by infinity. The people had to prepare themselves, wash up, clean clothes, focus hearts. It prompts us to consider, how do we approach God today? Well, we have the privilege of intimacy with God. Reverence is still important. Do we rush into his presence casually, or do we remember his greatness? This scene is the birth of covenant, akin to a wedding of God and Israel. Both sides agree. Israel said, I do. We will do everything the Lord says. And God is about to pronounce the covenant vows, the commandments, as with any wedding preparation and solemnity, they underscore the significance. Another insight, God calls Israel a kingdom of priests, meaning every person in this nation has a calling to represent God in the world. That is huge. It wasn't just the professional priest or Moses who mattered. Every Israelite was invited into a special role. Likewise, today, believers talk about the priesthood of all believers, an idea that traces back here. We are all meant to reflect God's light. Finally, consider the timing. God brought them to Sinai 3 months after rescue. He first saved them and then gave the law. That order matters. Um, Grace comes first, then obedience as response. God didn't say, keep these laws in Egypt and I will save you. No, he saved them, then gave the laws for their good. Our relationship with God works the same. We love and obey because he saved us, not to earn it. Fun fact corner. So Sinai is Horeb. Horeb is Sinai. The mountain Moses ascended here is called Mount Sinai, but in some parts of the Bible, especially in Deuteronomy, it's referred to as Mount Horeb. No contradiction, they are two names for the same location. One thing is that Horeb, meaning desert in Hebrew, might refer to the broader range or region, and Sinai is a to a specific peak. Jewish tradition even gives the mountain other names. But generally, Horeb and Sinai are interchangeable for the mountain of God, where this covenant showdown happened. Another fact, the loud trumpet sound from heaven in verse 16 is our first biblical instance of a shofar blast directly from God. It was so terrifying that in Hebrews 12, verse 19, it notes that people begged no further words to be spoken. Also, note the third day motif. Often in scripture, big revelations or deliverances happen on day 3, foreshadowing even the resurrection of Jesus. Here, the third day was when God's presence descended visibly. It's as if God set an appointment and wanted them in eager anticipation. All right, that's it for chapter 19. All right, chapter 20, the 10 Commandments. Divine top 10 list. Here we go. The moment that's been building up. God himself speaks from the mountaintop to the people, delivering what we famously known as the 10 Commandments. Imagine standing there, thunder rumbling, the mountain smoking like a chimney, and then a clear, thunderous voice proclaiming the terms of the covenant. It's both awesome and terrifying. Let's break down the big 10 in a storytelling way, like I do, and the Israelites, heard it. First one. Number 1. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall have no other God besides me. Boom. First command. Loyalty. The Lord basically says, it's me who saved you. Don't go chasing other gods. I'm your one and only. In a world cluttered with deities, Israel is to have an exclusive relationship with Yahweh. Number 2, you shall make for yourself any idol. You shall not make for yourself any idol or graven image. You shall not bow down to them or serve them. So no little statues, no pagan idols, no celebrities, no political leaders, whatever. Nothing to represent God or replace him. Worship the Creator, not the created, not your political leaders, not your celebrity crushes. God adds that He is a jealous God. God is a jealous God, in the sense of, zealous for our devotion, and that disobedience will affect generations, but love and faithfulness will benefit thousands of generations. In short, no cheating on God with some golden calf or figurine, or, in our case, in this generation, celebrities, politicians, what have you. Number 3, you shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God. So this isn't just about swearing. It's saying don't use God's name lightly or falsely. I know a lot of political leaders right now are using God's name to make people obey them. Whatever. So no dragging God's name through the mud or using it for deception, like perjury or politics, or invoking God to justify wrong. God's name is holy. Treat it with respect. Number 4, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. So work 6 days, but the 7th day is a Sabbath to the Lord. No work for you, your kids, your servants, your livestock, or the foreigner in your town. God reminds them He made the world in 6 days and rested on the 7th. So He blessed the Sabbath. This command gifts a rhythm of rest, an every week holiday to recharge physically and spiritually. Enslaved people must have loved, this concept, because they were never given rest, really. Now they were commanded to rest. Oh, I was saying earlier this was not in the, I don't know why I said it was not in the 10 commandments. I was saying it was just a command. But okay, so yeah. I don't know why I said that. What was I thinking? Anyways, so number 6, you shall not murder. I mean, that should be a no-brainer. So short and clear, the Hebrew specifically forbids unlawful killing or murder. Human life is sacred. No taking innocent lives, even, the not innocent ones, unfortunately. Just let, God do His work on that end. I imagine, a collective gulp and side eye among any hotheads in the crowd, those who have murderous intents. Anyways, number 7, you shall not commit adultery. Faithfulness in marriage is commanded. Protect the sanctity of relationships. No sneaking around. In a broader sense, it upholds trust and covenant keeping in the community. Number 8, you shall not steal. So keep your hands off what is not yours. From oxen to iPhones. Oh, maybe not iPhones yet at that time. So respect others' property. Number 9, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. In plain terms, do not lie, especially in a way that harms someone. No false testimony in court, no slander, no spreading lies about others, no white lies even. A community can't function without truth and justice. And I tell this to my daughter all the time. Like, no lying. Because if you lie, even if it's just a white lie, it's going to be hard for me to trust you. And if I cannot trust you, I cannot help you. So tell mommy the truth so I can help you in whatever situation you're in. Yeah, so anyways. And a lot of kids lie all the time. Like, oh, mommy, I didn't eat the cake, or I didn't eat the ice cream, even though there's proof. Anyways. And number 10, you shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or their servants, or their ox, or donkey, or anything that belongs to their neighbor. So, if you didn't know, covet is wanting something that is not yours. Just like your neighbor's wife or your neighbor's husband. So this one is unique. It reaches into the heart because, people are different. Every person is different from another. Every person has different desires. So, whatever that is. So, say my daughter, for example, if she wants her friend's toys, that's kind of a covet. Or, example, me. I want to have my can't really think of, so hypothetically, if um at work, for example, and I want a specific job that my coworker has, it's not mine, it's theirs. I don't know how else can I explain this, but wanting something that that is somebody else's. So yeah, so this is unique because again, everybody has their own desires. So it reaches everyone. So don't obsessively desire what others have. It could be a nice house. Even it's just thinking about it, that's coveting. Just thinking about it. Like say if your friend has a bigger house than yours and you're thinking, "Oh, it would be nice if that house is mine." Or if your buddy has I don't know, a nicer, more expensive car than yours, you know. Or for kids, if their sibling or their classmates or their whatever cousin had a better birthday party. So it's different for everybody, but you get what I'm saying. So no envious plotting to get their spouse, no envious plotting to get their house, their dogs, their cake, their whatever. So be content in what you have and keep envy in check. All right. And then, and then there they are, the 10 Commandments spoken directly by God's voice. This divine top 10 list covers our relationship with God. Commands 1 to 4, our relationship with each other, 5 to 10. Interestingly, they're often called the Decalogue, meaning 10 words, emphasizing these are foundational utterances from God Himself. Now, imagine being an Israelite witnessing this thunder, lightning, trumpet sound, smoking mountain, and a voice delivering these weighty commands. Oh, I would not even know. I don't know. I would pass out. I would be too overwhelmed. So what's your reaction? Like, would it be terror, awestruck? The people were literally shaking in their sandals. Like again, I would pass out. I would literally pass out if I was there. Oh, as the last echoes of God's voice fade, they back away and plead with Moses. Like, Moses, how about you speak to us and we will listen, but do not let God speak to us directly or we will die. They experienced sensory overload of holiness and basically said, we've heard enough. We promise to listen to whatever God tells you. Just please, no more divine thunder voice. Moses tries to calm them. Do not be afraid. God has come only to test you and to put the fear of Him in you so that you do not sin. In other words, yes, this was scary, but it was meant for good. To instill a reverence that keep you on the right path. The people stood at a distance, still trembling, while Moses approached the thick darkness where God was. At this point, which is after verse 21, Moses is back up in God's presence and God gives him additional instruction to relay. God reiterates that the Israelites have seen that God reiterates that the Israelites have seen that He spoke from heaven, and He lays down a principle. Do not make any gods of silver or gold to rival me. Then He gives guidance for simple, altars. Make an altar of earth for me and offer your burnt offerings and peace offerings on it. If you use stones, use natural uncut stones and don't go up by the steps so as not to expose your nakedness. That's curious detail. Basically, God wanted their worship altars humble and simple, not ornate, like pagan temples. No fancy technology or human pride in it. Also, pragmatically, no high platforms where someone might indecently expose themselves climbing. God thinks of everything. These altar instructions show that even after such a cosmic revelation, God is providing down to earth ways for people to worship Him properly. With that, chapter 20 wraps up. Israel has now heard God's core covenant terms loud and clear. The marriage ceremony, so to speak, has been conducted, and everyone is still catching their breath. The Ten Commandments are the heart of God's law and have been influential for millennia. Here, delivered, amid fire and smoke, we see that morality isn't human invention. It's given by our Creator. Each commandment safeguards something precious: loyalty to God, true worship, respect for God's name, restorative rest, family integrity, life, marriage, property, truth, and contentment. If you think about it, it's a society that keeps these 10, will flourish. No wonder they've endured as a moral foundation. For the Israelites, hearing God's voice directly was so overwhelming that they begged for a mediator. And Moses steps fully into the mediator role, which in Christian understanding later foreshadows Jesus as the mediator of a new covenant. Moses told them not to fear God, but, have the right kind of fear, which is awe that keeps us from sin. There is a balance. God doesn't want us terrified to the point of running away from Him. It's like being a parent or being a father. Like, you want your child to, I don't want to say be scared enough to listen to you, but actually not scared of you at the same time. I don't really know how to explain that. But yeah, you don't want your child to be terrified of you, but scared enough because to listen to you because they respect you. Kind of like that, same concept. So He does want us to hold a reverent awe, so we take Him seriously. It's like a love. Yeah, it's like what I've said. So the people's reaction also shows that sometimes we humans think we want direct supernatural experiences, but when faced with God's raw presence, it's more than we can handle. How, fortunate are we that God meets us gently most of the time. And lastly, notice that the first commandment basis is relationship. I'm the Lord your God who brought you out of slavery. God's laws come in the context of love and liberation. He isn't a tyrant barking orders. He's a rescuer laying out a path of life. The 10 Commandments were like the wedding vows of this covenant, and they start with I love and save you first. Our obedience today, similarly, should stem from remembering His, that He first loved us. All right, fun fact corner. Decalogue, or the 10 words, the term 10 Commandments comes from the Bible itself, which calls them the 10 words. Or in Hebrew, Aseret Ha-Divarim. Hence, the fancy word Decalogue literally means 10 words. Interestingly, if you count the imperative statements, there are more than 10. You shall not, you shall not, blah, blah, blah. So different religious traditions divide them slightly differently into a list of 10. But the idea is these were 10 fundamental utterances from God. So, while Exodus 20 is God speaking the 10 Commandments, later in Exodus chapter 31, this is a spoiler, we learn God gave Moses 2 stone tablets inscribed by the finger of God. So the movie scenes of Moses with stone tablets, that's coming. According to Exodus chapter 32, the tablets were carved on both sides. So Moses would break the first set in anger. So, stay tuned for the golden calf incident. I'm just giving you a little spoiler right now. And God later graciously provides the second set, which is going to be in Exodus 34. Those tablets eventually resided in the Ark of the Covenant. Imagine carrying around stones handwritten by God, like by God, literally by His fingers. Talk about priceless, literally priceless artifact. Another fact: the first commandment with a promise. So, as noted, the fifth commandment, honoring parents, is special for being the first one that explicitly attaches a promise that your days may be long in the land the Lord is giving you. The New Testament even remarks on this. It's in Ephesians chapter 6 verse 2. It shows that respecting authority and family harmony actually has societal benefit, stability and longevity in the land, living. Wise living. All right, I have another one. I need to hurry. It's already been 56 minutes. The Israelites' fear at Sinai was so intense that later generations look back at this event as the ultimate theophany appearance, which is the appearance of God. In Deuteronomy, Moses recounts that the people's request for a mediator was actually affirmed by God, saying, "They have spoken well. If only they had such a heart to fear me always." The scene is a defining one, emphasizing that the law was given in a context of awe. It wasn't a dry legal code handed in a classroom. It was thunderously declared in a way no one could forget. Wow, 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 wow. Anyways, I just wanted a moment of silence. So, what a ride. By the end of chapter 20, the Israelites have heard God's law and formally become God's covenant people. They've gone from slaves in Egypt to standing at the foot of God's mountain, hearing His voice. So, what happens next? Will Israel keep their promise and obey these commands perfectly? I think I gave you a spoiler in this. So, but seasoned Bible readers, y'all know. In upcoming chapters or in the next episode, God will give Moses even more instructions, civil laws, worship guidelines, and plans for a special dwelling, which is, the tabernacle. Moses will be up on the mountain for 40 days on holy download. But down below, the people's patience will be tested. Another spoiler, a certain golden calf fiasco is on the horizon. How will this newly covenanted nation fare when faith is tested? Will they hold to God's top 10 or stumble at the first hurdle? So stay tuned for episode 5 where we will see law codes, divine blueprints, and yes, a dramatic fall from grace that threatens everything. The journey is not over. Just getting started. And trust me, you won't miss what's coming. So, thank